So if you don't mind just giving us your first name and age.
I'm Scott, and I'm 66 years old.
Okay. So if you could think back to before you came to see us, how long did you wait before making the decision to try physical therapy here?
I've been in physical therapy with a couple of different therapists for about 6 weeks or so, and I can tell you more about it, but I decided I had plateaued or wasn't getting what I needed. So after I heard about Peak Performance, a friend of mine who had been here before recommended them, and I waited probably no more than a week to call and talk to Trevor, who asked me a few questions, and we decided I could come in for an evaluation and conversation.
Okay. And do you mind telling us a little bit about what was bothering you?
No, not at all. About 6 months or so before, excuse me, before I came in, I had number one torn a bicep in my right arm. But what really irritated me, or irritated the situation, was I then developed a rotator cuff irritation. It wasn't a tear, but it was sort of a debilitation of it that was irritated.
And although you were going through some physical therapy before and feeling like you had plateaued, what did you feel? Were there any obstacles in seeing physical therapy? Fear, cost, uncertainty, having a bad experience elsewhere, anything like that?
Before I came here?
Before you coming here, or did it leave a bad taste in your mouth because you had plateaued, or maybe they weren't talking to you about what you wanted to achieve? That sort of thing?
No. I, as I say, I felt like I had plateaued. I had two physical therapists. The second one was very congenial. Talked a lot about what she was doing and what I should do. I felt they were somewhat limited in the avenues they would explore to determine what exactly the problem was. But after I talked with Trevor on the phone and came in with the interview, I determined that this was a group that would go further into what I wanted, which is what's the source of the problem and how do we get at it. So
Good.
I had no bad taste.
Okay.
I had a little hesitation, but a couple of conversations got me over that.
So it was more figuring out what the root cause was instead of just what the person was doing for
Right.
you?
Right.
Okay, good. So as far as your shoulder pain, how bad was it before you came to see us, or how bad was it before you had seen the other physical therapy?
Okay. I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, it wasn't necessarily constant pain, but there was an ache, a throbbing and an aching with it, and I felt like I had practically no strength in that, and I wanted to get better with that. Especially my internal rotation was very, very weak.
And is that your dominant arm too?
Yes, it's
Okay.
my dominant arm.
Gosh. So what were you missing out on before kind of getting to the level you are now?
The lack of discomfort. I was missing out, or I was missing what I felt like was a good solid feel about the arm, and starting to develop, as my wife told me, the tendency to use my left arm for things and stay away from the right arm. And I was aware of that, so I wanted to get away from that and get back to doing things with my right arm, because if I continued to use the left arm, that wouldn't help the right arm.
Okay. Were you missing out on anything like that you enjoy doing? I know you work out a lot. You do the yoga. Was it limiting you in the level that you wanted to get to?
I was lifting weights on a regular basis, a couple of times a week with a trainer, and I couldn't do anything over the head, and I felt hesitant about doing anything, such as flies or over the head capabilities. That sort of led me down the path to being ambivalent about working out, because I've been going to Pilates and yoga and doing a lot of cardio work on the Stairmaster. And so when you have a major part of that that's inhibited, you sort of lose your momentum.
Yeah.
And I was a little, wasn't afraid of yoga. I continued to go somewhat, but I wouldn't try to go through all the poses because it was painful.
So you felt like you had to pull yourself back a little bit.
Yeah, and then that sort of devolved into just not working out much.
Right. Okay. What else did you try, or had you tried anything else prior to seeing the first physio or PT, injections, pills, chiropractic, anything like that before?
I did try a cortisone shot. Actually, a couple of cortisone shots, and as different than when I had a meniscus tear 8 or 10 years ago, and the cortisone shot provided some relief until I could have that trimmed. The cortisone shot basically did nothing to help me, even after 3 or 4 days.
Okay. So what was your understanding about physical therapy before you came to see us? Because you obviously had been through some, and if you had a differentiator when you put the two together, what was your understanding of PT prior to seeing us?
Well, when I had the meniscus tear, I went into physical therapy at that time with that group, and that was a very good experience. I was up and running on a treadmill within a week, and I had hard workouts utilizing the knee, and I felt like that was the thing that I needed. And then fast forward to the problem with the shoulder and the physical therapy there, and it was more a matter of, here are some bands and we'll show you how to use them, and you should do these 3 times a day and come back next week. So what I really felt I was lacking was someone who would work me through it, make sure I was doing it right, but at the same time put in the time with me so that I would be participating and not taking it home and putting it in the back seat and forgetting it.
And now that you've experienced physical therapy, kind of how we have explained it to you and taken you through it, what have you felt were the things that you gained from our type of physical therapy?
Well, I've told several people since that time, since I started with you. It started out with a phone conversation with you, Trevor, and then meeting with you, and coming away from that with a feeling that you weren't going to be bound necessarily by, I don't want to say convention, but by what doctors had said before. And I didn't know where that was leading. I didn't want it to lead to shoulder surgery. But anyway, I decided that what I came away with there, and what proved itself later, was that you and Matt have a very good understanding of the anatomy of my shoulder, and I'm sure with other places, other people. And you were interested in getting to the root of the problem. In other words, the scapularis muscle, and and working with that and getting that to relax and fire, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
So
it's kind of an understanding of what the heck was going on, the root cause, and then we were able to address it that way,
right,
as opposed to, here's your exercises.
Yeah, an understanding of what was going on, and then the people I worked with understanding it and focusing on that and having several tools to work with.
Good. So, and now that you've experienced physical therapy, if one of your friends or family members had pain and they were procrastinating over going to see someone, what would you tell them about physical therapy now, or about us?
Okay. And I've done this, as I say, with several friends who've had different issues, and they may or may not. One had a plan to do something and then come see you, but and my son's got a shoulder problem he's had. But what I would tell them is that they need to call, talk with you and or Matt, sit down and talk with you and or Matt. You can't, my standard line is you can't have too much information. But when you sit down and talk with these guys, I said, you understand what they try to do and how they try to do it. And to me, it's a more comfortable and more effective approach than doing maybe what the doctor had recommended without following up and seeing how that was doing.
Gotcha. So of all the things you enjoyed about coming to see us, what was the thing that you liked the best?
I like the focus on the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and I was impressed with your documentation, so that when I came in, you knew where I was, what I had done last time, and had a plan for what we would do going forward. And moving, like, feeling like I was moving forward rather than having to start over every time.
Gotcha. So even though you might have seen a couple different people, we always were on point with where you were getting
The
to.
documentation speaks for itself.
Good. What would you say to anyone who's watching this video who is currently skeptical about physical therapy or just undecided?
Well, as I said before, and I can't understand people being undecided, because number one, I've told everybody since the meniscus tear, make sure you do the physical therapy. If you don't, you're going to be hampered, and you can't do that over. But what I would say here is, again, as I said, give these people a call. You know, when I talked with you, it wasn't, well, we'll come in and we'll talk. It was, you kind of talked me through what you understood I was saying, which gave me a lot of confidence, and that led to me coming here. So what I tell people is, give them a call, and even go by and see them. It doesn't necessarily cost you anything. Again, you can't have too much information, and it's a little different perspective that if you want to stay the course on improving your quality of life after an injury, you need to check this out.
Okay. So it was almost that understanding even before we asked you to come in to do business with us.
Right. Yeah, I felt like this was something I needed to look at.
Good. All right. So last thing here. What was the number one thing you wanted to achieve by coming to see us, and did we help you achieve it?
Number one thing I wanted to achieve was a lack of pain, and not necessarily continuing to depend on my other arm, but to getting through and over the pain and strengthening to the extent that I could and I can my rotator cuff, the muscles around it, and to stop transferring the pain down to the bicep or the tricep. And that's what I look for. And yes, I feel like I got there. The pain is pretty well over. I have some aches occasionally, and I'm sure that's part of the game. But it's not a constant pain, and I feel like I've accomplished that. I think I've gone through, as I recall, the steps were stabilization, mobility, and then strengthening. And I worked through all three of those, and worked with Matt a couple more times on exercises, weights and exercises that I want to continue to do, but to find out the right way or the wrong way to do them, but more importantly, what I probably shouldn't try at this point. And that's very helpful. And as the results from my follow-up testing, I've achieved better flexibility, mobility, and I know I'm stronger.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.